In this video, we're going to learn the 2 to 6 player game Waddle Waddle, published by Brushtail Games. It's spring in the Southern Ocean, and the penguins are starting to nest. You are competing with other penguin scientists to research these adorable seabirds. You must decide which penguins to track and which nesting grounds to monitor to gain the most valuable research. Join me in learning to play Waddle Waddle. First, decide how long of a game you want to play. Waddle Waddle takes place over 1, 2, or 3 gaming segments called seasons. Each season will take about 30 minutes. To start setup, place the game board in the middle of the table. There are 6 frozen cards. Place them near the game board. Give the first player marker to the person who most recently saw a live penguin in person. If there's a tie, you may choose randomly. There are 6 Penguin Hero cards. Starting with the first player and proceeding clockwise, each player chooses a Penguin Hero card and the matching bag of nests and places them in front of themselves. Each player puts 1 nest on the 0 space. The cards with photos of penguins make up the penguin deck. There are 6 species of penguins in Waddle Waddle. Each species is color-coded and has a different icon. These icons also appear on the game board and on the Penguin Hero cards. In addition, there's a special promo card called Kevin. We will talk about how Kevin works later. For now, set Kevin aside and shuffle the 72 penguin cards into a face-down pile. Take the bag of fish and empty it near the center of the game board. This is the fish supply area. Initial setup is now done. At the start of each season, there is additional setup. These are the conservation point tokens. You'll want to shuffle them into a face-down pile. Place 1 conservation point token face up in the white bordered area in each of the 5 gaming areas called rookeries. These are the fish supply tokens. Shuffle them into a face-down pile. Place 1 fish supply token face up in each rookery. Then place that many fish in the rookery. Then remove the fish supply tokens and return them to the storage bag. These are the threat cards. Deal out 4 piles of 9 penguin cards each from the penguin deck. Place a threat card on top of each of those 4 piles. Shuffle each pile of 10 cards and stack them. Then stack the rest of the penguin cards on top. Place the penguin deck at the top of the board. Each player draws 1 penguin card and adds it to their hand. Then reveal 2 cards for each player in the game. This game area is called the ice flow, and this is where players will choose penguin cards during the season. These are the season event cards. There are 3 possible events for each season. Randomly choose a season event card corresponding to the current season. Place it near the board for reference. If the event card has an immediate effect, do that now. In this case, the card says to deal 1 more penguin card to each player. Some season event cards have an ongoing effect that affects the entire season. Season setup is now complete. It's time to play the first season of Waddle Waddle. The object of Waddle Waddle is to score the most conservation points. The 2 ways to score points are to play waddles and to place nests. A waddle is a set of 3 to 6 penguin cards, all with the same number, or all in numerical order, or all of the same species. There's a handy guide on the game board to help you remember the different kinds of sets. The more cards in your waddle, the more points the waddle is worth. A 3-card waddle is worth 5 points, while a 6-card waddle is worth 15 points. So it's often worthwhile to try to build bigger waddles. There's a scoring guide on the game board to help you remember how much each waddle is worth. When you play a waddle, you'll immediately move your score marker on the score track. When you collect a waddle that is both in exact numerical order and all the same species, you score bonus points. Bonus waddles are worth 1 extra point per card in the waddle. For example, this 4-card waddle is worth 12 points. To play a waddle, lay down your entire hand. Any penguins that aren't part of the waddle go back to the ice flow. You don't get to keep them. You can play your waddle at any rookery where at least one of the symbols at the rookery matches one of the symbols in your waddle. When you play a waddle, it costs 1 fish. Remove 1 fish from the rookery where you play the waddle. If there are no fish at the rookery, you have to use fish from your own hand. When your waddle contains mating pairs, meaning two penguins of the same species, you may get to place nests on the board. You only get to place nests when the mating pairs match the icons in the rookery where you play the waddle. This waddle gets 2 nests if played at Argentine Sea because both the king and rockhopper mating pairs match the rookery. But it only gets 1 nest if played at South Georgia Island because only the king mating pair matches the rookery. You don't score points for nests right away, but you'll score bonus points if you have the most or second most nests at a rookery at the end of a season. Now that you know how to score points with waddles and nests, let's look at what happens on each turn. At the start of each turn, add cards to the ice flow until there are as many cards as there are players. In this example, I'm playing a 3-player game, and there's only 1 card in the ice flow, so I need to deal 2 more cards. In a 2-player game, always refresh the ice flow to have 4 cards at the start of the turn. If all the cards revealed when refreshing the ice flow are penguins, continue with your turn. But if you reveal a threat card, your turn is interrupted, and instead, you'll handle the threat. We'll talk about threats later. If you didn't reveal a threat when refreshing the ice flow, you take 1 action, and only 1 action, unless a card ability allows you to take more actions. The 2 main actions are drafting penguin cards from the ice flow to build waddles, and then playing those waddles to the game board. You can also improve your hand by sending penguins on fishing trips, or by exchanging penguin cards. Now let's take a look at each of these actions in more detail. The first action you can do is to draft a penguin. Take any 1 face-up penguin card from the ice flow, or if you prefer, you can take the top face-down card. You can have a maximum of 9 penguin cards in your hand. If you already have 9 cards, you must take a different action. Note, if you take the face-down card, and it's a threat card, reveal it immediately and handle the threat, which will be explained a little later in the video. If you have no cards in your hand, instead of the draft action, you must take the refill action and take 2 cards, one of which must be a face-up card. The ice flow does not refresh between each card draw. If you draw a threat card, reveal it immediately and handle the threat, which will be discussed later in the video. To exchange a penguin, return a penguin card from your hand back to the ice flow, and then take any 1 face-up penguin card, or if you prefer, the top face-down card. Then take a frozen card. Once you are frozen, you cannot take the exchange action again until you play a waddle. A fishing trip allows you to get rid of a penguin card that you don't need, and it gets you a fish to use later. To go on a fishing trip, return a penguin card from your hand to the ice flow, and then take a fish from the supply area. You cannot go on a fishing trip if you already have 2 fish in your hand. And the last action you can take is to play a waddle. To play a waddle, choose a rookery for the waddle, return any unused penguin cards to the ice flow, pay a fish from the rookery where you play the waddle, or from your hand. Then place nests if possible, and move the score marker. Now you might be wondering at this point, why would you want to exchange penguins or send them on a fishing trip? And it's because there's a special bonus you can get if you collect exactly 2 waddles in your hand with no leftover cards. And that bonus is called a Waddle Waddle. Normally when you play a waddle, the unused penguin cards go back to the ice flow, and you don't get points for them. But when you have exactly 2 waddles in your hand, you get to play and score both waddles. Each waddle can go to the same rookery or to 2 different rookeries. Just remember, each waddle still costs 1 fish, either from the rookery or from your hand. And nests for each waddle go to the rookery where you play the waddle. And remember, to Waddle Waddle, you can't have any extra cards in your hand besides the 2 waddles. In order to improve this hand into a Waddle Waddle, I could do one of 2 things. I could go fishing with this penguin, then the next turn I can Waddle Waddle and score 10 points. But in this case, a better move would be to use the exchange action to trade this penguin for this one in the ice flow. Then next turn I can Waddle Waddle for 13 points. If you draw or reveal a threat card on your turn, set the threat card aside and find the matching threat token for the card. Choose a rookery with an open threat dock and place the threat token there. While they are bad for the penguins, threats have powerful effects on the game that you can use to your strategic advantage, so choose carefully. If the threat has an immediate effect, take that effect now. Also note that some threats have placement restrictions that tell you where you can or cannot place them. Once you've handled the threat, your turn is over. You don't get to take any more actions this turn. The penguin hero you chose at the start of the game has a unique power when you play waddles that meet the criteria printed on their card. Be sure to use their power to your advantage when playing a waddle. There's a page in the How to Play book explaining each penguin hero power and some links so you can learn more about how these heroes help penguins. Each season consists of collecting cards from the penguin deck until you reveal the 4th threat card. The player who drew the 4th threat handles the threat as usual, then continue taking turns until play reaches the first player. Then each player takes one final turn before the season ends and you score bonus points. At the end of a season, count the nests in each rookery. Give the bigger bonus to the player with the most nests, and the smaller bonus to the player with the second most nests. In case of a tie for first, the players tied for first each get the second place points, and second place is not awarded. If there is a single first place winner and a tie for second, the players tied for second get half of the second place points, and first place scores as usual. In a 2-player game, only the player with the most nests in a rookery scores bonus points. If a player's score passes 100, give them a bonus token. Flip it over if they pass 200. If you decided to play a 1-season game, the player with the highest score wins. If there's a tie, the tied player with the tallest nest stack in a rookery wins, and the second tiebreaker is the tied player with the most nests overall. If there's still a tie after that, celebrate your mutual greatness. If you're playing a multi-season game, discard your penguin cards and prepare the penguin deck for the next season using a new set of threat cards. Leave all nests and fish on the board, and keep any fish that you have in your hand. When setting up each rookery, instead of randomly dealing out the conservation point tokens, there's a catch-up mechanism. Give the first player marker to the player in last place. Players now choose and place conservation point tokens on the board using the provided chart. Then place fish supply tokens using this chart and put out the indicated number of fish. Set up the ice flow, deal cards, reveal the next season event, and start the next season. Last but not least, there's Kevin. Kevin is a special promo card based on a real leucistic penguin. Kevin cannot be part of a waddle. However, you can exchange Kevin or fish with Kevin as a free action. Exchanging Kevin does not cause you to be frozen. After you fish or exchange with Kevin, take a second action. Note: you cannot take Kevin back into your hand on the same turn that you return him to the ice flow. If you choose to play with Kevin, when you build the penguin deck, shuffle Kevin into the top half of the deck before stacking the deck. Thank you for watching, and thank you for supporting independent game developers and penguin conservation. Brushtail Games donates $2 for every copy of Waddle Waddle sold to support penguin charities.